this just a big argument? Is this just conflict that we need to work through? Or is this becoming abusive, right? There can be a fine line there. And so we have to be able to discern, where that line is, and then when to define it as abuse. So we're looking for patterns of abusive behavior, and the types of patterns that we see with people who are actually abusive is that the harm tends to be intended. So it's not unintentional harm they're causing. Abusers will cause harm on purpose to be hurtful or harmful to you. And so sometimes, and this can happen a lot with covert narcissists, sometimes it's hard to tell, right? Sometimes they'll play it off as, no, this wasn't intentional. I didn't mean to, or I was just kidding, or, things like that. And so then you're going, well, they don't seem to be intentionally hurtful or intentionally harmful, but the pattern is there where they're continuing to do it again and again. And so if you're seeing a pattern of this behavior and it's not changing, even though you're addressing it with them and you're telling them how it's affecting you, how it's causing you to feel, and you've asked them to stop doing something that's hurtful to you, they continue to repeat that behavior, that can lean more along the lines of abusive behavior. Another telltale sign in someone who's abusive is, and this is more overt narcissistic types, or overt abusive types versus covert. If those types tend to be abusive to themselves as well. And so they'll do things that are self-destructive, like maybe they have addiction issues. Maybe they have a history or pattern of self-harm. There's a higher chance of someone that's overtly abusive having those type of characteristics. So you're looking for other destructive behaviors in their life that show that there's a pattern. So it wasn't just, oh gosh, like I had too much to drink one night and I ended up getting behind the wheel. I will never do that again, and then they never do it again. Okay, so we're looking at patterns. We're looking at people who regularly abuse alcohol, or regularly show signs of self-harm. And it's interesting because nobody likes to talk about this. Nobody likes to refer to addiction as being in relationship to abuse. They want to a lot of addicts, before they actually go into rehabilitation, they want to play the victim, right? And they want to say, it's not my fault for my disease. So now, because I've labeled it as a disease, I can be the victim in the problem I've created. And now because I have a disease and I've labeled it as a disease, I can also be the victim of how it affects everybody else around me. You see what I'm saying? So, and this is something, again, that I know is very controversial, but I think it's something that's really important because as I've worked with victims of narcissistic abuse, in almost every case scenario, these people have highly addictive personalities, and they do have very prominent addiction problems across the board in their life. So that's another, I think, really important sign that you want to look out for when you're in a relationship with someone is, what are these destructive behaviors that they have? Are they patterns? You're looking for pathology, right?